Hey everybody, welcome back to Artist Talk. Thank you for coming to my channel, Art and Spirit. Did you subscribe yet? I hope so. If not, click that button and subscribe before you leave.
Hey Angela,
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm doing it. Living the life and trying to be present for every moment and trying to live in the blessing of what it means to be alive in this moment and learn the lessons that we need to learn to keep moving forward.
You're teaching remotely, you're not in person.
Yeah, all of our classes are remote that are artistic classes. Yeah.
Okay. Is that difficult to have artistic classes remote?
It's not that what's difficult about it is in this moment we've come to learn a lot of things that we never ever thought about. We never thought about travel time. And what travel time does for us is it gives us a moment where we can't schedule things. So you have that, even though there might be the craziness of getting around on New York subway or whatever, it's still a mental rest downtime that now that we are pretty much in quarantine or home, you don't schedule that time. You're not conscious of that time. So there are days when you're like, I go back to back to back to back and then wonder why I'm so tired is because I literally been sitting in one place without taking the breaks that I need, that I usually would get, that travel time would give me. So trying to balance doing the work that needs to get done with self-care, I've never been the best at that balance. But that's really more and more necessary.
So now that I know you got a remote singing thing going, I might call you.
Mm, what you mean remote singing thing?
You can teach me singing
Oh
classes
Lord.
remotely.
I've worked with you before, remember?
I know. I remember. So,
Yes.
guys, let me tell you this story. So, I was doing the color purple, and I was understudying an alto, and I'm a soprano, used to be, but but I was understudying an alto, and I just could not. I mean, she is a phenomenal singer. And, I'm a musical theater person. She was a jazz singer, blues singer, and I just could not navigate those lower notes. My friend here, he said, let's meet up. We met up at a studio and he got me right. He got me
Oh.
right because you know why? He helped me understand the storytelling of it. He really took me out of my head about the notes and
Hmm.
took me to the storytelling. And it really changed the whole trajectory of my time with that show. That
Yeah.
2 hours that we spent
Yeah.
in that studio. Thank
Yeah.
you, Michael.
You're welcome, Angela. It's our bodies are truth tellers. And when we get in our heads, our bodies don't know what to do. And what they do naturally, they no longer know how to do. Right? So the minute your brain says, oh my gosh, here comes that note, your body responds and goes, something bad's gonna happen. So I have to either fight or flight. And the thing that you need, which is the air and the breath and the ease that should be there, you now rob yourself of that ability. So it's kind of what I say to my students all the time is, you don't ever see a baby asking for a Ricola because they lost their voice, and they can go all day and all night, right?
Right.
And they never lose their. You don't hear a horse baby. You don't hear the baby having laryngitis
Right.
because the body it is doing, and the sound that's coming out is coming out from the body in the most healthy and natural way. And we spend all our lifetimes as artists trying to rediscover through technique how to do what our bodies should do naturally.
Actor. When did you say I want to teach as well? Did you make that conscious decision or did they come after you?
That's an interesting story. Um, as you know, I went in and out of the show Rent a couple times. So I replaced Jesse Martin in I think 1997, and I was there until 2001. And then I went back 6 years later in 2007, closed it on Broadway in 2008, and then went on tour starting in 2009. and did from January. We literally started tech on the 2nd of January in my hometown in Cleveland. And somewhere around October, it was the first week of October, we had just left Cincinnati and we were flying to Appleton, Wisconsin. And I wasn't feeling well. And and I thought it was just a sinus infection or bronchitis or something like that. And I hadn't gotten my flu shot. And I missed my first show. And then I could not make it to the theater at all. And by the time I got to the emergency room, like 4 days of being in my hotel room, they said that I had the swine flu. And so by that point, I had been sick. So, there's that medicine they give you if they catch it early enough. They gave it to me anyway. And the next week, I rejoined the company in the next city. But that was October. And until the show closed in March, I never fully regained my voice in a way that I had before. Some of it was healing just from what had happened to my throat it was a lot of different things. And then the fear set in. And I remember that small voice, the one that sometimes we don't like to hear,
Mm-hmm.
saying somewhere around beginning of March, when we were like 2 weeks before closing, saying, I'm ready to not do this anymore. And not because of the sickness, but just because I just felt like there was something, it was time. The next day, the head of my studio, Kent Gash, called me and said, we're starting this new musical theater program, and I think you should apply for this position. I came home a week later. I went in, I worked with students. I met with the team that was looking at hiring. And the next week I met with the chair. The week after that, I met with the dean of faculty. The week after that, I met with the dean. And then I had this job in this new program to develop the curriculum for vocal performance. You be careful what you know what I mean? Because I had said, I think it's time.
Mm-hmm.
And this literally came out of nowhere. I had no intention of teaching. My mom was a teacher. I grew up around teachers. But I always knew that theater and being an actor was not going to be the end game of my artistic journey.
Yeah.
And when it happened, I said yes. And then I figured it out.
What happens when you walk into the class and they have Googled Michael McElroy, founder of BIV, Tony nominated, Violet, they Google all that and you walk in. Are they fanning out? What's happening?
They hide it very well. I don't find out till months, sometimes years later, that they know who I am and have seen, the Rent closing night performance, or, they don't, this generation is pretty cool. They don't say anything and they just kind of sit there. And then I find out sometimes years later.
Yeah.
One of my students had a poster of me on their wall. Never knew until he was a senior.
Live in my house. I'll be your shelter. Just pay me back with 1,000 kisses. Be my lover, and I'll cover you.
So you've been teaching now long enough to have students who have graduated, who have done well, who have dropped out of the business, who never pursued what they were in school to do. Did you notice a consistent quality in the ones that did well?
Well, it's interesting. When I started teaching, I had my training was at Carnegie Mellon. And I got amazing training, amazing teachers, and some of the most difficult experiences that left some scars. But for me, what it did was it made me fight harder for what I wanted and to understand that those teachers had something that I wanted and needed. And it didn't matter if I liked them or didn't like them, or if they didn't like me or didn't think I could do it. I was going to get everything I could from them. So I always knew when I became a teacher, and I remember in my interview, I said, I want to bring the best of what I had from my um, years of training and not the trauma. And so one of the agreements that I made for myself was I would always give every student 100%, right? Even if I didn't think they had what I think it took to do it, I was never going to give them any less. And so when I see the ones who have had great careers and are really thriving in places that we can visibly see, I'm not surprised. There are others who are just as talented, who I know it's just a matter of time and just getting in the right room at the right time, and it's going to, that person's going to explode and those things start to happen. There are others who I know have it, but I don't know if it's ever going to click for them. And then there are those who I'm like, they have the talent, but that thing, that drive that will get them over that hump may not be where their spirit lives. And that I always know that whatever they learn will serve them no matter where they go. They've gone in all directions, but what you learn as an artist, that community building, being open and vulnerable, taking risks, knowing how to communicate, being up in front of people, the consistency of hard work and being consistent in your effort. Those are skills that will translate and transfer into anything you do. So I never look at it as a loss. If anything, it puts you at an advantage when you start to walk into those other spaces.
Well, we have to not cut art in school.
Well, that's a whole other, we could spend, because we all know, and we talk about this in BIV all the time, that all of us are fulfilling our dreams because at some point we can look back at a music teacher or a dance teacher or a theater teacher or any teacher who looked at us and saw something in us and said, you've got something, and I'm going to mentor you, I'm going to nourish you, I'm going to pour into you something because I believe in you. And the arts programs were an integral part of child development.
Yes. So in the age of activism and artivism and all that's going on in our country with regard to race and police brutality, how are you talking to your young artists about how they can use their voice as artists?
Here's the reality, and I've said this to every class that I've had since we got back this fall, and I've said to them, who I am as a Black man and as an artist are totally interconnected, and I can't separate them in this moment. And I talk to them and I say, because they know me, they know my work, they know my career, and to most students in their classroom, they know me as Michael, right? And I have to clarify to them, you know me as Michael, but when I walk out of this building, I am a 6'3" Black man on the street, and we know what value that has in the world right now. So in this moment, I cannot separate what it means to be an artist from what it means to be a Black man in this moment. I cannot. So what I say to them is, I'm going to bring it in the room, y'all, and I have to trust that you will hold me as I hold you in the work, that we will create a community, a room, a space where we know how to bring what's in the world into our work, and what we know when we know we have to hold up a wall, a door, and say, that will not serve me in cultivating my art in this moment. So I will leave that out there so that I can find the joy of my artistry in here, with the hopes that as we continue to teach value across diverse voices and lived experiences, as we continue to pour into the curriculums and pedagogies that we're teaching, the value of other voices and lived experiences, it will teach them to be artists / activists in a different way, that they will go out into the world with new knowledge and new ways of kind of navigating and interrogating who they are and the world that they're walking into. I feel any student that leaves having not interrogated what they think they believe while they're in an artistic space, then we haven't done our job. And too often we look at diversity and EDIB as only for students of color. It is equally important for our white students to be challenged to look at what they've been taught to believe and to learn through education, to learning history and putting that into the artistic practice, the value of all the different people that have made up this country that they haven't been taught, right? The histories of and the contributions that people that look like you and like me and like many of our friends of color, that they have not been told, that they have been cheated of, so that they can make their own decisions about what is of worth and what is valued. And my responsibility in this moment is to make sure they learn that information.
Mm. Yeah, because you're also the director of diversity initiatives. Wow. I mean, I've been really I've been wrestling with the idea of whether or not true diversity really exists.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you think it's attainable? And if so, what do we have to do in order to really get it?
If we can't do that in our artistic spaces, then I don't know where we can do it, right? Because being an artist, being an actor is about stepping into the lives of what's on a page and bringing it to life. Empathy, compassion, non-judgment of research, doing the work, right? Not judging the character, embodying the character, all of those things. So I feel like the ideas of equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and bringing that into the artistic space requires us to make a shift in how we're training artists. First of all, it means we got to look in the mirror and know what we're carrying. And then we have to start making sure that what are some of the things, the traditional ways of training that are steeped in ways that promote systemic racism or institutionalized systems that value one lived experience over the other. When we talk about classical work, what are we talking about, right? And how does that live in a systemic and institutionalized white European space when there are other forms of art and theater and song and dance and movement that precede them by hundreds and thousands of years, right? So my job as an actor, as an artist, as a teacher, is to make sure my students have that information and that I am cracking open what they think and feel and believe for the sake of the craft, but also for the sake of their humanness, right? And then maybe if we can do that in these spaces, we can take that out into the world, because we're living in a world right now that does not value that. We're living in a world that has made difference a bad thing. It's a negative thing. We are fractured. And if we're not able in our artistic spaces to find that healing, to create spaces that will allow us to heal, what is art doing? It's always been the thing that holds up a mirror to society. It's always been the thing that's challenged society by pushing it forward to see the things that it doesn't want to see through the art. And if we're not creating spaces where that's possible, then we can't do it with the art that we're creating.
Something has changed within me. Something is not the same. I'm through with playing by the rules of someone else's game. Too late for second guessing. Too late to go back to sleep. It's time to trust my instincts. Close my eyes and leave. It's time to try defying gravity. I think I'll try defying gravity. You can't pull me down. You can't pull me down. You can't pull me down.
So do you think the theater is a place that is doing that?
I think that the theater got a wake-up call in this moment. And, as you know, I'm a founding member of Black Theater United. I'm also a founding member of MUSE, which is Musicians United for Social Equity. I'm working with another organization called NYC Next. But What I have found is that many theater institutions, organizations are saying, we see it. We don't know what to do, but we know we got to do something, and we want to partner with you. And what we're saying, and what I'm saying in return is, yes, I want to partner with you, but let's be clear about what my work is, what your work is, and what our work is, right? And I'm finding in almost every situation that when that is the way it is presented, people are saying, yes, I know I got some work to do. So let me do my work while we partner together to create what we want this industry to look like. You know, we want, and it to me, it seems like it should be a no-brainer. The more diversity that is in the room, the more voices are in the room, the more stories that can be created, the more news stories that we haven't even thought of could be created. And so it is of absolute importance in this moment of stasis that the theater industry is taking a really good look at itself and putting into practice, putting into development systems that when we go live again will be in a different way, because we are starting to integrate into our spaces more diverse experiences, lived experiences that will help us to develop theater in a new way that we haven't even dreamed of. Or else we're just regurgitating the same stuff.
Yeah.
Who's interested in that?
What I love, though, looking at it from through a spiritual lens, I love how God led you to do that very thing with BIB. And so the very thing that we're seeking for the theater to do, the very thing that you work on in your diversity, being the director of diversity initiatives at NYU, you have done with BIV. My reluctance to think that whether or not diversity exists, it's not because I haven't seen it. I have seen it with BIV. It's just that I have been a part of so many organizations that seek it, and their way of attaining it is for everybody to be the same. And it doesn't become diversity. They really don't want to do the hard work of diversity. They just want different color people in there acting the same.
It's a checking off of a box. It's saying, oh, I've done that. But, you know, for us, it's about exactly what you're saying. It's like, you know, when you have programs, artistic programs that bring in a diverse group of students, but then don't create environments where they feel like they belong, where you don't center their lived experience in the curriculum or in the pedagogies that you teach or in the plays that you do or the scene work. I mean, you can't just say it and think it's a checked off point. It's just like artistry and being an artist. It is an ever evolving, no arrival point to it. So you checking off and saying you've done something, you've entered into it and it's already wrong.
I want to do something that really has an inspirational quality to it. And so I got 12 friends together. I said, you know, I grew up in church. I grew up singing this music. I know the power of it outside of the religious dogma, just the music itself. And I think it can be a healing experience for our community.
You're still our family, and we will fight for you.
So we did a benefit the first year with 12 actors, 3 of whom are now Tony Award winners, Adrienne Lennox, Billy Porter, Alice Ripley. And we just did a night of gospel music. And the response was so overwhelming that it became an annual event for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS.
Send out the call and join the flame.
It's been an amazing experience, and all of it is centered in the music and how important the healing power of music can be in an actor's life, in a young child's life, in a community in which we are. Texture and quality, when you bring a group of people together, and especially for us, we are a diverse group of people. So you're going to see every background, belief, gender identity represented in our over 60 members of our choir.
A lot of my work right now is centered in the history of Black music in this country. And I talk about this all the time. When you look at a people who were stripped of everything that made them human, right? They were stripped of their families. They were stripped of their culture. They were stripped of their humanity, their humanness, and relegated to being 3/5 of a human, and science and religion to back it up. With nothing left, they created a song, right? Which proved to me and to the world, whether they wanted to admit it or not, that though you have bound my body, my spirit is not tethered to this plane, right? And in that music, which is the foundation of every form of music created in this country, is the DNA of that power, the DNA of that ability to rise above circumstance and find a way to give voice to your pain, your joy, your sorrow, your hope for something better. And it has moved through country blues and classic blues and ragtime and jazz and blues and rock and roll and pop and R&B and all forms of gospel that exist today. It's in the blood, it's in the music. So it wasn't so much for me about could only Black people access this. I believe that the music transcends that. It is that powerful. And that if I could get people together and get them out of their heads of what they thought they couldn't do or what they didn't feel they had the right to do, and just center the music would do the work.
BIV received the Tony honor in 2019. But you got a Tony nomination for Big River as well. Which was the most impactful for you?
BIV for sure. When I was nominated for Big River, the show had closed and had been closed for like 9 months.
Okay.
You know, we closed in, I want to say, July, and then I was nominated in May of the following year, which was a surprise all in itself. And it was so, people kept saying it, and I was like, please, I'm not thinking about that. And then I'll never forget it. I was living downtown, and I woke up, and I said, I need to run to the grocery store and get some stuff. And the grocery store literally was next door to where I was living. Went down, got groceries, came back, turned on my phone, and it said, messages full. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Mm-hmm. And then it was just congratulations after congratulations. I had missed the nominations on New York. I had missed it because I wasn't even thinking about it. But then the experience of the show being closed, and literally the day after the Tonys, I was leaving to go on tour with the show. The Tony honor for BIV, we sat in a room 4 or 5 years before with a strategic planning group of choir members and people outside of the choir who we brought together to dream about what we saw happening in the next 5 years. And one of the things that was said was, I think we should get a Tony for our work in the community.
Wow.
And 5 years later, right, it happened. And it happened at a time, when we've talked about this, where personally I was in a low moment. I was in what do you call them, the valley of preparation? What do you call it? And I was in it was a deep valley. It was a ravine. It was it was actually down in the molten lava space. I was at the center of the earth. That's where I was. And when they called to tell me that we were, and I couldn't say anything because they weren't announcing it. They called me on like a Thursday and they weren't announcing it to the next Tuesday. I hung up the phone and I started to laugh and I started to cry because I thought, this is nothing but God. And it was in that moment what I needed as a human being, because of where I was in the molten lava. It said, I see you and I acknowledge the work that you and BIV have been doing for 25 years. And in that moment, to be seen and acknowledged in that way it healed some things for me in my spirit. I'd like to thank David Wong and Heather Hitchens of the American Theater Wing, Charlotte St. Martin and Tom Schumacher of the Broadway League, and the entire committee for this incredible honor. And to so many of you in the room who have supported us over the years. I started Broadway Inspirational Voices 25 years ago out of a need to bring inspiration to our community during the height of the AIDS crisis. At that time, 12 Broadway performers lifted their voices in songs of inspiration to raise funds for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. Every year, I continue to ask friends to join, and in these past 25 years, we've had more than 200 members with over 150 Broadway credits. Our annual concerts showcase our full complement of 60-plus members representing different backgrounds, identities, and beliefs, all united to support Broadway, the Broadway community, and change our world through the power of music and authenticity. We choose to be diverse. When we lift our voices in song, we not only blend our voices, but our many experiences. In 2007, we became a 501c3 so that we could use our talents to give back to children and young people in need. Our outreach programs serve LGBTQ and trafficked youth at Covenant House, New York, monthly, and elementary schools in underserved neighborhoods. Our teachers reflect the populations they are serving because we know if you want to be it, you have to see it. Our music program at Ronald McDonald House, New York, partners Broadway composers and lyricists with kids battling pediatric cancer, and they tell their stories in song. As of this fall, our program, Songs in the Key of Me, will have produced 40 songs celebrating the lives of these brave children. We as Broadway performers live the dream of our childhood because someone saw something special in us and believed in our talent, and between the teachers and the mentors and schools who valued arts education, there were many opportunities to cultivate our passions and our gifts. Today, that is not always the case. The need is great, and we believe every child deserves the chance to express themselves and their experiences through exposure to arts that can transform their lives. When we were called upon by our community, we chose to serve. And will continue to be ambassadors for the Broadway community. There's so many people that make this possible. I want to thank Shelley Williams, our chairperson, and all of our leadership team. Our leadership team made up of Marcus, Danielle, Danielle, Chris Z, Chris D, Kimberly, Angela. They work like they're full-time jobs. Also, I want to share this honor lastly with all of the members of Broadway Inspirational Voices over the 25 years who've lended their talent and their time to our organization and to our Broadway community. I share this with each and every one of them. Thank you.
We were all just so thrilled. You know, as being a part of BIV, we were thrilled, but I think everybody will agree with me that we were all so thrilled for you. I mean, even people that's not in BIV, when they see you, they're like, oh, can I tell you about this thing I'm going through? Because they look at you as the pastor of Broadway. I know you don't like it when I say that, but that's...
Well, no, but my stepfather was a pastor, my grandfather was a pastor of our church. And so I look at pastors and I look and the weight that they carry because everybody needs them 24/7.
I mean, it's your students, it's the people in the choir. It's, you know, so-and-so's having surgery, so-and-so and they call you, not to be a burden, but because you open the door for that. You say, let me know what you're doing so that I can pray for you, so that I can remember you in that hour. So, I mean, it really is a high calling. It's not to be taken lightly. And so how do you... I mean, self-care is not your thing, so I don't even want to call it self-care. That'll be a waste. Maybe if I call it something else. But how do you replenish?
I am trying to do better about self-care. You know, Eliseo, who's in the choir, is my best friend and my roommate, and he's on me all the time. Though most times he's quiet because he's just like, you ain't gonna listen to me, but you know I know. I also want to say that I have so many good friends and support systems, and there is a legion, there's an army of BIV workers, right? So I can only do what I do. For a long time, it was just me out there. And then there were people that sort of added on and left and came and get back. But now to do what we do, it is an army. And I can only do what I do because of what they do. So, when you have Cynthia as our new executive director, you have Shelley as our president and the board, you have Marcus, and you have Angela and John Eric, and we have our prayer team, and now we have our diversity team, the diversity initiative team, have John Eric. I mean, it's like, and then I have a music team now. So I think I'm something because I got a music team with Will and Ben and Alan, Anastasia, Adi, Jen, and Anna, our production manager. I mean, it's a full-time 24/7 business of work that has to get done. And I can do what I do and stand in front, which takes work, but there are things I don't have to think about now because we have a support system of people who are just as passionate about the choir and believe in what we do and hold down Broadway shows at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? So what do? I love vacations. And this has been what's hardest about this quarantine time is that I live from vacation to vacation. So right now, I would have planned my holiday vacation for the Christmas holiday, and that is not possible. So that makes me a little anxious because I need those moments where when I'm on vacation, I'll open up my computer in the morning and sit out on a deck somewhere in some warm place and answer my emails. But I can close that computer and never look at that computer again for the rest of the day. That's harder to do when I'm home.
Yeah.
Right? So I look forward to those moments, and also with friends. I love traveling with friends. It's the best time to be able to have conversations and laugh about stuff that we don't get to do when it's a quick dinner here or a quick Zoom call here. Friendship to me, relationships, they ground me and bring me joy.
I just want to ask you a few quick questions that I ask
Sure.
everyone before I let you go. At what point in your journey do you feel that you became not just a singer, performer, but an artist?
There's some things that you lose if you're not working at them all the time as you get older, but there are many things that you gain. As you get older and you keep walking this walk, you lose a little bit of that fear. That doesn't mean you don't get nervous, but you care less about what people think, and it's all about getting the work done. Now, when you're young, you could, be out all night with your friends and sing the next day. You can't do all that when you get older, right? You know what I'm saying? So, as I've gotten older, I feel like I'm stepping into my artistry in a different way because I'm not afraid of my power. I'm not afraid of being wrong. I'm not afraid of making mistakes. I'm not afraid of risking in the pursuit of my artistry. Whereas before, I may have been a little bit more careful about wanting to get it right and do it well. Now, I don't care about getting messy.
Hmm. What keeps you up at night?
Oh, mistakes. This work that I'm doing now, which is really looking at not being able to separate being a Black man from being an artist, has caused me to develop some new things and ways of teaching. And that way of teaching is new. And with anything that comes new, you make mistakes. And as I'm creating these new exercises and modes and practices, there have been mistakes. And those keep me up at night because in the pursuit of something different and new, I have to give myself grace and be forgiven for making those mistakes. And so when I make those mistakes, and I'm thinking specifically some things that have happened in the last few weeks in this moment in which we're living, that keeps me up because my intention is never to cause harm in the pursuit of my artistry. And so when that happens, that is devastating to me because I don't like to live, I don't like to have regrets. I make mistakes, and I know that's a part of my learning and growing. But when I make a mistake and I regret something, that sticks with me. It's harder for me to shake that loose.
Someone's watching, and they're so inspired by you and the work that you're doing, but their journey took a huge hit when everything shut down, and they just don't know what to do. They may have even left New York by now. They don't know what the future holds for them. How can we encourage them to to not abandon their artistry? Or how can we not even specify what they need to do, but how can we encourage them?
The first thing that comes in my mind is literally, I don't know. I think that is so hard. One part of it is the logistics of like, there are support systems here that are built into our community to support you in this time, whether it's the Actors Fund or Broadway Cares Equity Funds, and that's about the financial side. There's arts grants. There are grants that arts organizations are giving to artists in this moment to help them in their time of need. As artists, if you keep living and growing, your artistry transforms, right? What we do as artists is affected by our living, our humanity, and our lived experience. But the world also holds that same power, and the world affects us as artists, right? And we have a choice of how we receive that information of what happens to us. Everything becomes fuel for the artist to then be able to manifest in some way back out into the world. And when I look back over my experiences, it's rarely the times when things were amazing that defined me. It was the moments when I was at my lowest that taught me something about myself, that helped me to move forward in a way that if I hadn't had that lesson, if that thing hadn't happened to me, the thing that we talk about all the time, why do these horrible things happen to good people? Why does this? If that thing hadn't happened, one, I might not have appreciated this other thing, but I wouldn't have had the tools. I wouldn't have had the armor. I wouldn't have had the fortitude. I wouldn't have had the inner strength. I wouldn't have known that my faith could be tested and I could overcome if I hadn't had that moment. And in this moment, if being an artist means everything to you, then you have to hold to the fact that, yes, while you're trying to deal with the real life day-to-day needs that have to be met, what you're learning about yourself as a human being and an artist in this moment, can you imagine if you're able to process and to deal with what is going on, what you'll be able to manifest when we're on the other side of this? All I can think of is Richard Smallwood's song, "Hold On, Don't Let Go." Right? It's not the good times that define us. It's not. It's the moments when our faith is tested. That's the thing. Hold on. Take it all in. Cry when you have to. Lean into your friends as you must. Lean into your faith as you must. Hold on, because if you can make it through this, imagine the stories you'll be ready to tell on the other side of this. You'll be coming out in the world with some stuff that you never knew was possible, that you never knew you could do. That's what I hold on to.
Well, everybody, you have experienced a little bit of what I have had the pleasure of having for over 20 years. A connection with someone who's so connected, but also extremely fun and extremely human. My friend, Michael McElroy.
I love you, Angela Robinson.
You too. Thank you for doing this. You just took us to church.
No, please.
Thank you so much, Michael, for coming to Artist Talk. Thank you for your servant's heart. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for all you do for the Broadway community and for the arts community. Thank you for being you. If you missed the BIV virtual concert, you can still see it. Go to BroadwayOnDemand.com and enjoy and be blessed. And you know what? Just to get in the holiday spirit, BIV has 2 holiday albums. Yes, 2. Great Joy and Great Joy 2. Go on and get those. It'll help you get in the spirit and you won't be disappointed. All right. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. See you next week.